Well, it's getting worse. I'm supposed to get, surgery for knee replacement in maybe 6 or 7 years. So, the deterioration is going apace. But so far, well, it's getting no major issues that haven't existed already a decade ago.
Nice, 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 nice. But at least it's nothing new. At least it's nothing.
No, no,
Nothing.
not
It's
yet,
not
not yet.
creeping. It's not creeping on you yet.
I mean, it flares up every now and then, but then it just goes away again.
Yeah. Well, you do what you can do. So today we're here to talk about the 14 characteristics of fascism. Now you've been in some interesting, I guess, online conversations as of recently.
Oh yeah, God, it's painful. Where should I start with this? I am really, really worried, progressively so, about the state of certain societies.
Uh huh.
Not pointing at any fingers. Actually, yeah, I'm pointing fingers. Let's have a look at the US because it's getting bad.
Yeah.
And the discussion is coming whether the US is becoming a dictatorship, how far that has progressed, whether there's a way to stop it.
Yeah.
What exactly it's gonna look like if it's getting worse, what consequences it's gonna have for its neighbors and
How bad is
everyone
it gonna
else.
be? Yeah.
Yeah, and well, let's just have a look. So you already have it on the screen.
Yep.
There's this article written by Lawrence Britt. It was written in 2003 in Free Inquiry. I think the original article was called Fascism, anyone? And
Good title.
yeah, and in that article, he listed a set of 14 characteristics which he found to be common in all the regimes except this fascistic, commonly.
Yep.
So it was Nazi Germany, obviously, and Italy, Franco Spain, and Portugal, and Indonesia, and Chile. So yeah, a lot of data sets to take inspiration from.
Yeah. It gives.
By
I
the
think
way, I
it's.
think this list is incomplete, and we're gonna talk about that in the end. I think there's two more points to be added.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think that that's also valuable to give people a little bit more perspective to be like, as much as Hitler's like the quintessential Nazi, the quintessential fascist, there's more than just we can use more insults. We don't have to call everyone Hitler all the time. We can call them different things.
I mean, first
We
of
got
all,
options.
people starting to compare Trump to Hitler, and I don't think that's justified. He reminds me way more of Hermann Göring.
Mm,
This kind of pre-famous, affluent character.
yeah.
Göring was a World War One hero. He was hero. He was a flying ace. He ended up in the same air regiment where Manfred von Richthofen was. The Red Baron.
Yep.
So this guy was already rather famous in military circles way before the entire shit hit the fan for the second time.
Yep.
And Trump is obviously not a war hero. In fact, he's quite the opposite of one.
Right. Yeah.
But there's
It's
this
the
kind of
fame that goes with it.
yeah, it's this kind of fame that's just preceding their political career.
Yep.
And the way they speak is also somewhat similar. In the end of the Nuremberg trials, when Göring was to give his final speech before sentencing, by the way, that speech is online. Obviously, you can look for it. There's a video of it, but also the entire transcript exists.
Yep.
He basically blamed the court for being unfair to him. Said something to the effect of, whenever somebody was saying something bad against me, this was taken as truth, whereas, whenever somebody was saying something good about me, this was taken as perjury. In spite of all the evidence that was presented, just try to make character assessments about, the witnesses, I guess.
Those damn liberal progressive justices.
Yes, and when I saw Trump walking out of that sentencing hearing, not the sentencing hearing, but when he was found guilty of those 30 somewhat felonies 1.5 years ago, it sounded almost the same, like almost word for word, like a couple of sentences in there that were just eerily similar. Of course, Trump is much more stupid than Göring was. All of them had IQ tests done during the trials. I think Göring's got around 125 or something. So he was not stupid. Actually, he was quite in the upper end of the bell curve when it comes to IQ. I doubt that's the same with Trump for obvious reasons. So Göring was way more eloquent. But the meaning that they tried to present was eerily similar. So if you want to compare Trump to somebody, compare him to Göring, because I think that fits.
And definitely go check out his speech before before the end of the trials. So the 14 characteristics. Let's get into this. We've got
Yes.
powerful and continuing nationalism. Fascist regimes tend to make constant use of patriotic mottos, slogans, symbols, songs, and other paraphernalia. Flags are seen everywhere, as are flag symbols on clothing and public displays.
Yeah, I mean, in the US, you had this kind of flag showing for decades.
Yeah.
Which I've always found weird. But now, obviously, there's this entire, having Trump tattoos and having MAGA hats.
It's very extra.
Writing "Make America Great Again" on your giant, ridiculous SUV.
Yeah, and the trucks and stuff. And you could say the same thing about the truckers in Canada. The truckers in Canada had, like, these fuck Trudeau flags and, like, Pierre Poilievre flags, who's the conservative leader, the fascist authoritarian. And they were flying Nazi flags.
Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising. What I always found a bit weird about the US is, first of all, just showing off the flags and everything, the national symbols everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean that exists to certain degrees everywhere, right? But
in
Germany, you don't really do that.
Having a flag, yeah.
Yeah, but in Germany, you really don't fly a flag unless it's the football World Cup. In which case, it's okay.
Yeah, now it's a sports team flag. It's not a national flag. Like, the Canadian flag is around.
No, in that case, you literally just fly the German flag during the Football World Cup. That's okay.
Right.
But in the US, for example, there's also this thing that it starts really early, like, having to say the what's it called, the Pledge of Allegiance every day in school.
Yeah, that
is so weird.
That's a thing. Like, it's the same with the national anthem. Like, the national anthem in Canada is only played a handful of times. Like, you usually in school will learn it in French as part of your French studies. But that's about it. Like,
wait, hang on a second. Is there a French version of the Canadian national anthem?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I've always disliked Canada because a big part of you speaks French and the other part actually allows them to do that.
Yeah, I'm still baffled that Trump managed to piss off Canada so badly. They made Quebec the Quebecois Canadian.
Yeah,
hilarious.
The Greenlanders Danish or European all of a sudden.
Yeah. Very funny. Very funny.
Yeah, and this showing of national symbols is something that seems to become more common everywhere in the Western world. In Germany, it's the same, and it's obviously also starting from the right. I mean, about our AfD party, which is also significantly disturbing.
Yes. Didn't somebody get arrested? System, or was that France? Might have been France. Sorry, go on.
Go into more details because there's lots of people getting arrested.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
So,
the AfD.
In Germany,
sorry.
It's actually pretty straightforward legally to ban a political party. Yes. It's just that the threshold for it is pretty high.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, so for example, about 15 years ago, the NPD, the Nationalist Party of Germany, was about to be banned. And they were clearly violating what's called the FDGO, which is basically the democratic order of the constitution, right? The German constitution says, hey, we have these very basic democratic principles. As long as you stay within those, you're fine. But once you go out of them, once you want to transform Germany into the dictatorship of one type or another, right, whether it be left-wing, right-wing, or religious, your rights of forming a party, holding political office, and so on and so forth, those can be taken away. And banning the party is the first step in that.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was that the party was not banned, not because it didn't violate the FDGO, but because it was so irrelevant that the judge ruled that they couldn't even do any damage if they wanted to.
Right.
Right, because they only got a few seats in like regional parliaments or state parliaments.
Yeah.
But now the situation, with the AfD is different.
Definitely
because
escalated,
they are now the most powerful party by seats in, I think, 2 of the 16 states, which interestingly is all Eastern Germany, right? It's all the former GDR.
Right.
Which, you have this kind of pendulum thing. And I see why it happened, because people there, the economic situation is just worse than it is in Western Germany. The yearly income is lower, education is a bit lower. People just feel left behind. The population is also shrinking, at least in the rural areas. Parts of Thüringen and northern Thuringia and Sachsen-Anhalt, for example, are basically empty.
Right.
For European standards. While only 2 of the major cities there are growing and everything else is shrinking.
Right.
That was especially bad directly after the reunification. Now it's kind of rebounding a bit. So it's very clear that not enough was done, and people are angry about this, and I really understand this. But the pendulum swing is just going way too far.
Right.
And in the US, I mean, people are feeling left behind, and I can't blame them. But this kind of victim blaming that they're doing is just not the right thing to do. It's just not the logical consequence. Immigrants and, brown people of weird shapes, speaking weird languages, coming to your country to work, those are not your problem. Those are not the ones who cause the problems. But I think we talk about that one later. Let's continue to point 2. Let me read that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, this is a good one. Disdain for the recognition of human rights. Because of fear of enemies and the need for security, the people in fascist regimes are persuaded that human rights can be ignored in certain cases because of quote-unquote need. The people tend to look the other way or even approve of torture, summary executions, assassinations, long incarcerations of prisoners, etc. Now, I don't think we're at summary executions yet. We're not at assassinations yet, even though it's kind of getting there, which is kind of insane.
I've definitely seen the human rights can be ignored.
Yes. That starts with the entire shipping people to El Salvador thing.
Yeah.
That's
revoking
not even
birthright citizenship, revoking.
Yeah, hang on a second. That's actually started way earlier. I would make the argument that the entire U.S. prison system is inhumane.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Not only because of the conditions, not only because of the extreme sentencing times, not only because of laws like this kind of 3 strikes thing that existed a while ago in certain states, but also by the fact that, how should I phrase this? That there often is no willingness to attempt resocialization. In Germany, when you're a murderer, right, if you have committed the worst crime possible, the Constitution still kind of guarantees that you must have some sort of rehabilitation. That doesn't mean you ever get out of jail, right? But it means that attempts must be made.
Yeah.
Right? For example, during sentencing, if you get sentenced murder, which is a mandatory 15-year sentence at least, there's this thing called besondere Schwere der Schuld, which means higher degree of guiltiness or guilt, I guess, which only means that you can only get out after 25 years. And even then, there's going to be a check whether you're still a danger for society.
Right.
But what was ruled as inhumane was directly at the sentencing saying, you're never going out.
Right.
Because you take away people's hope and willingness to live and at least the possibility of them trying to improve.
Right. It's just like, what's the point if I'm just going to be here the whole time? Yeah. It's
exactly, yeah.
Demotivational, for sure.
Yeah, you can't do that. I mean, then there's the entire debate about the death penalty, and I'm not going to talk about that one now because that's another completely different term of arms. Which I think, but just to summarize it, the argument can be made that people commit so bad crimes that they lose their right to live. But that's not the same argument as actually making the point that you should actually use that power as a society.
Sure.
Right? Because the disadvantages of actually executing people might be much worse than the benefits you have of getting rid of them.
Yeah, it becomes a
that's
pragmatism, yeah.
Yeah, that's a completely different thing.
I mean, my point on it is, like, if you're gonna do it, bring back the guillotine. If you're gonna do it, don't pretend you're doing something you're not.
More or less, yes, but the main issue that I see is that this finality is just not something we should do.
Sure.
Right, because there's always a chance that they're innocent. There's always a chance that they might have been under some sort of influence.
Yeah, Canada doesn't have the death penalty.
I mean, it's always a funny thing because, when you read about a death penalty in Germany, like in school books and shit, it always says something to the effect of, these days, the death penalty is only used in developing nations and in the US.
And America.
Yeah.
Oh, America. You
that's already a pretty big hint that something's going wrong, isn't it?
Right? Okay, so here we hold on for 1 second. It says we can talk about how there's already a lot of human rights violations, or what I think people would consider human rights violations in more developed countries and not America. But if we talk about even the ones that they have had, they have been rolling those back, the ones that they do have. So things like abortion rights, things like the the El Salvador people being deported without due process. They're trying to roll back due process in its totality.
That is a bad one. That is a really, really bad one.
Yeah, and
the issue is that obviously
I said one other one before, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. No, the issue is very obvious, right? Due process should be never, ever, under any circumstances, taken away from anyone.
Yeah,
because that just creates a slippery slope of the worst kind.
Yep.
Right, because now it's gonna be immigrants where you suspect that they might be gang members. In the future, it might be citizens where you suspect that they're gang members.
Yep.
Where do you draw the line?
Right. That's what the due process is for.
Exactly. Yeah. You can never ever take that due process away. It must be guaranteed for anybody. Full stop.
Gay rights and trans rights and women's rights all being rolled back or heavily restricted, as well as like attacking doctors and educational workers. Book burning is a thing that's been happening.
Yeah, but that's in a different point you will see later. The book burning thing is very clearly related to one of the other points.
Okay. People tend to look the other way or even approve of torture. Yeah, that's definitively the abortion right removal, as well as the El Salvador stuff, for sure.
What was the name of that House of Representatives member a couple of weeks ago who showed up this Twitter video of her executing
the dog?
Like a puppet? No, not the dog. There was something where she kind of made a life-size human voodoo doll thing, strapped it to a chair, and then shot it in the back of the head.
Yeah, that's so weird, man.
Yeah, no, it's very clear that people would be fine with doing this.
We haven't gotten so far as assassinations, but Trump has had a judge arrested that he doesn't like, so it's moving that way. Long incarcerations of prisoners, yeah, that's already a thing, so, yeah.
Long incarcerations under inhumane conditions.
Yes.
Right, long incarcerations are not necessarily evil, depending, of course, on the scope of the crime.
Yeah, but, well, when you have summary executions and torture, then
yeah, but putting people literally in cages, shaving their heads, that just doesn't fly.
Yeah.
Not cool.
Number 3.
Identification of enemies and scapegoats as a unifying cause. The people are rallied into a unifying patriotic frenzy over the need to eliminate a perceived common threat or foe, racial, ethnic, or religious, minorities, liberals, communists, socialists, terrorists, etc. Immigrants is missing on that list.
I mean,
even though I would say racial
and ethnic would probably be that is, because you'll notice that it's only certain immigrants, right? It's only the brown ones. If they're white immigrants or they're white passing enough, it's not a problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, did you see this Twitter conversation a couple of days ago where a Danish citizen was just arrested in the US, father of 3 or 4 kids who had gone over there legally?
Yes.
And had just missed one, like filling out a form on the way to citizenship.
Yep.
And he was arrested and is about to be deported. And the first comment under that thing was, "This wasn't what I expected. I was hoping they would just arrest people from South America, but not this guy.
Not this guy.
What's the difference to that guy? Because that guy's white."
Yeah. Gee, I wonder. So that one's pretty obvious. You've got immigrants, you've got Mexico and the border, right? That flies under this patriotic frenzy about there's brown people in our country, no, bad.
Yeah, religious minorities obviously as well. This entire Palestinian protest thing, I think, falls under this.
Yeah.
Communists as well. I mean, they're talking lots of shit how every Democrat is an evil communist socialist.
Yeah, that's
no.
Yeah, that's been going on in America for a very, very long time. Like, I've seen people yelling at Canada being like, "You guys are communists," and I'm just like, you don't know what that word means. Supremacy of the military. Even when there are widespread domestic problems, the military is given a disproportionate amount of government funding. And the domestic agenda is neglected. Soldiers and military service are glamorized.
How high is the US military budget each year now?
Oh
Is
my
it
god.
already like 850 billion or something, or even more than that?
It's so over bloated. And then they get mad that other countries don't spend as much as they do. And it's like, because you're insane.
Yeah. I
What
mean,
are you doing?
remember last year, 2 years ago, when Trump was criticizing that most of Europe wasn't spending 2% of the GDP target for NATO? Every single European nation back then, even that bordered Russia, did this and way more. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland,
Yeah.
Slovakia, Romania, yeah, Finland, obviously. And
Here's
now it's
the.
almost everybody's closing in on 2.5 to 3%.
Yep.
Obviously, the more further west you get, the lower it gets. Yeah, 782 billion.
Like, what is this? You guys are crazy. This is DOD.
Yeah, and I mean, the point very clearly says, where is it? A neglection of domestic agenda. Your infrastructure is shit. You still don't have proper high-speed rail systems.
Yeah.
Your schools are crumbling, so are your bridges. Teachers are hilariously underpaid, but that's another point later.
Yep.
What else do we have?
Next one, we've got rampant
sexism.
Rampant sexism.
The government of
that's
fascist
not
nations
happening. I don't
seems
know
to be
what you
almost
mean.
exclusively male-dominated, and the fascist regime's traditional gender roles are made more rigid. Opposition to abortion is high, as is homophobia and anti-gay legislation and national policy. I'm not going to talk about that second sentence about abortion, homophobia, and anti-gay legislation because it's just so blatantly obvious. But the other one interests me a bit more. Traditional gender roles are made more rigid. Even in some, fictional regimes, which are universally accepted as some sort of fascist, like, for example, the one in Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
This point just often doesn't exist. In Starship Troopers, for example, women are treated exactly identical, even in the military.
Yeah.
Right? So even while a society like this completely misses that point, the US is very clearly going in that direction.
Oh, and
obviously, in Nazi Germany, obviously I'm going to talk about Nazi Germany a lot, right? Because
oh no.
I mean, I grew up in fucking Nuremberg. What do you expect? That one was just insane. You had this entire, should I even say, breeding cult? I think it kind of fits. Where German women were pushed to produce as many Aryan babies as possible. It's literally humanely possible.
Yeah, they're regularly taught. You got like people like Charlie Kirk. You've got like the right wing pundits. You've got like even the right wing senators talk about like, oh, our birth rate is declining. Oh, we need women to have more babies, and then banning things like abortion, which is exclusively about making more babies. And has nothing to do with like healthcare or anything like that. And then you have this whole trend of trad wives, which is just selling this fake idea about what being a traditional stay-at-home of, as well as like the pressure of the traditional, like the government trying to control people's families to say like this is the nuclear family, this is the right way to be a family, and it's all about like gender roles.
I mean, you mentioned a couple of politicians already. I'd even go one step further and say Elon Musk falls under that one as well.
Oh yeah, Elon does.
How many kids does he have at this point? Is it over 10?
Yes, I believe it is over 10. I'll double check though. And same with like I would argue Trump's the same way too. He's a horrible, adjudicated assaulter who like hates women and like treats them like garbage.
I mean, we all know about that Access Hollywood tape, which was pretty fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
But he's on his third marriage with women from I think three different women, right? The kids from 3 different women.
Yes, I believe so. Elon Musk is
the first 3 were the first one. The second one was what's her name, Tiffany, and now the third one is Baron.
Yes, and Elon Musk is at 14 children, and he's exclusively like has this whole thing about like trying to like control ethnic cleansing-y kind of idea where it's like, no, he's big smart, and so he has to have a lot of kids to replace all of the poor people. So, like, it's like
big and smart. Well, he's 50% right.
It's insane. So,
Yeah, it
and like
is.
it's like it's weird fucking nonsense, and like the trad wife stuff has a really bad lilt to it as well, where it's like it's not encouraging women to choose if they want to live this life. It's encouraging and prepping like young women and girls to accept these things. It's very, very Maid's Tale type
And then every
nonsense.
now and then you get a look into that. You remember like a year or two when there was this video of Steven Crowder mistreating his wife?
Yep. Yep.
Remember that one? We all
Yep.
know there's gonna be a shit tons of abuse in relationships like this.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
terrible.
yeah, I think the sexism is pretty fucking obvious. Number 6 is controlled mass media.
Yeah,
Sometimes
this
to
is one that is one that really manifests completely differently in different fascistic regimes, isn't it?
yeah,
And some of
absolutely.
them you just have a state-run monopoly on media, as you had
Hmm.
in Nazi Germany, for example. I mean, you had a propaganda ministry, for example, which you don't have in the US yet. But yeah, let's read it. The government of fascistic nations tend to be almost sorry, wrong one. Sometimes the media is directly controlled by the government, but in other cases, the media is indirectly controlled by government regulation. Sympathetic media spokespeople are executives. Censorship, especially in wartime, is very common. In the US, obviously, it's the second part, where I mean, Trump is just starting to take press credentials away, right?
Yep.
For certain organizations he doesn't like. What was it? Associate Press, I think,
Yeah,
no longer
Associated
allowed in the
Press.
White House.
Yeah, then he let in like Tim Pool and these like influencers that were sympathetic or like that agreed with him, people that are taking money from Russia. He's also got like he's got like he keeps trying to keep his thumb on Fox News and sort of treats Fox News as if it is the state-run media.
Yes, and I mean, whenever he's running in an interview
Yeah.
with anybody who even asks remotely serious questions that are not, just complete salatossery,
Yep.
he just leaves.
His
He just
fake
calls
news
people fake
rhetoric is
news.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, he famously did this to a German reporter while Angela Merkel was in Washington. It
Yep.
it was about the scandal that apparently the NSA had spied on Merkel's smartphone. Remember that one?
Mhm.
And I don't remember which German news organization it was. Maybe it was Der Spiegel. I don't remember. He asked somebody from them asked a serious question, and Trump was immediately like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that. You're fake news."
Yeah.
It's just how this doesn't. Trump is not the only one, obviously, doing this, right? This is a serious issue in all of U.S. media, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, there's a
There was a
problem.
case a couple of years ago where the U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands, whose name was Pete Hoekstra,
Oh yeah.
uh, he said that there are police officers being burned in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands. And he was called out multiple times by the press. And whenever, people told him, hey, you're spreading false information. This is just not true. He would just either just repeat it or
Yeah.
change the subject. This is just not how media is supposed to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're supposed to criticize people on their decisions, right? Because politicians
And question
rule the
them and ask them
populations.
why they're making that decision. Even if it's a good decision, be like, but what's your thought process?
Exactly, yeah.
Explain yourself. There's a degree of accountability or something to the people or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but that doesn't exist in the US anymore. And that
No.
is really, really worrying.
There's the censorship, especially in wartime thing, I think is a little bit interesting as well because you have Christy Nome, right? The DoD lady, the Homeland Security lady, sorry. Running around doing photo ops with military, like just propaganda stuff, and then going to the El Salvador prison with like people being like in bad conditions behind her, and she's just like tee. But then also with the Trump administration trying to put forward that the reason they're allowed to do this and deport people like this is because they're calling on some old wartime act to say that, oh, we're actually at war and we're being invaded, so we're allowed to just deport people without any due process.
Yeah, and then people defending that again. It's insane.
Which harkens back to number one, right? They're defending this awful treatment on these nonsensical points that are just trying to be ad hoc, jerry rigged in. 7. Obsession with national.
Wait. We're not done with this one yet.
Oh, sorry.
There's one more thing I'd like to add. It's always a bit weird, being lectured by an American saying, "Hey, in Germany, there are censorship laws. You can be sued for insulting somebody." It's weird because on your television you can't even say fuck. Just pointing that one out. There's no censorship maybe by the law, but there's definitely censorship coming on by the media.
Yeah, if we look at like media ratings, like the ratings of movies, like you're allowed to say like the F word once, but then you're also allowed to have somebody get their head blown off, but only a man, because very rarely do women get their heads blown off in movies in any way that you can actually see it. Like it's
the church as well, right? Enormous influence.
It's so weird
of the church on media production in the US.
Yeah.
Which does not bring us to the next point yet, but the one after. Anyway, 7. Obsession with national security. Well, that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, fear is used as a motivational tool by the government over the masses. Yeah, there's definitely no fear-mongering in America.
Yeah.
You see them trying to fear-monger about Canada now?
In what way? How the heck would you fear-monger? I mean, I get it, right? In World War One, Canadian soldiers had a reputation of being the reason why the Geneva checklist was written.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't blame them too much.
Listen, it's reasonable to be afraid of Canada, but that's different from fear-mongering. If you're afraid of us for things we actually did, that's totally fine and reasonable.
What are they fear-mongering about you then? That you're gonna switch off the electricity?
Well, yeah, that was one of the things. But what's his face? He's not Homeland Security. He's the guy that was recently being questioned in the Senate. I can't remember his name. Shit. He went on something where he's like, "Oh, well, listen, I don't care about the tariffs and I don't care about this about Canada. What I'm actually concerned of is all the drugs that are coming over the border and these drug dens that exist in Canada." And it's like,
I mean, both pounds?
Yeah, like, yeah, right. And it's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I saw the statistic that apparently the amount of drug flow from Canada to the US is like only 1% of the size of the other way around.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy.
I did not expect to say this, but you should build a fucking wall.
Right? Well, one of the things is, like, we agreed to this. Like, Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden came to an agreement about increasing border security. And then Trump came in and was like, "You better do this thing." And Justin was like, "Yeah, we will continue to do the thing we were doing." And Trump was like, "I got a big win from Canada." And we're all just like, but we ended up with like a bunch of like Black Hawk helicopters and like a bunch of extra border shit. And I'm like, and people are like, "I don't know how I feel about this border thing." And I'm like, I am totally fine with Canada taking advantage of Trump being a dipshit, taking all their stuff so we have more border security from the Americans right now.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
This is a great idea. We'll just get played. And we're ramping that up as well through at the behest of America. Trump wants us to do that, and Carney is now just like, "Yeah, we're gonna ramp that up."
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Canada and what you guys should do with the US later.
Racism came from Canada. No. It was that racism only exists. So Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre said that racism only exists because it was imported.
Okay.
I don't know. It's really fucking stupid.
Yeah, it is. I mean, racism has always existed, right? As far as you go back in society, in history, you find traces of that.
Make America pay for it. We kind of are. Okay. Religion and government are intertwined. Governments in fascist nations tend to use the most common religion in the nation as a tool to manipulate public opinion. Religious rhetoric and terminology is common from government leaders, even when the major tenets of the religion are diametrically opposed to the government's policies or actions. Trump waving the Bible upside down, anybody?
I doubt that he could read it. Wasn't he asked what his favorite passage was and he couldn't answer?
He couldn't answer.
I mean, it's not just Trump, right? It's going back. There was this really weird interview I saw a couple of weeks ago this was also on Fox News, I think, where both of them had these kind of charcoal crosses painted on their foreheads. Do you remember that one? And then everybody's saying, "Oh, this is a Catholic thing." Yeah, just not on television. Like, this is weird.
There's a lot of like it's the Christian nationalism, right? It's the Christianity and using Christian values and things that aren't even in the Bible that are just sort of part of like the Bible Belt culture, right?
And yeah, I mean, you still have that. I mean, you still had the Ku Klux Klan, which was also obviously terrible and still deeply rooted in the southern US.
Yeah.
Um, those people pretend to be Christians, and I honestly, I mean, I'm not a Christian, obviously, but Jesus was a fucking hippie.
Yeah,
Couldn't
yeah,
he
like
not be a little bit more like him?
definitively not a current day Republican, that's for sure. Like it's
The
sorry, go
other
ahead.
cheek.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you have like the anti-COVID people that were very like heftily religious, where you had like, oh, they're threatening we're not allowed to go to church because of COVID. But there's like a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And you was it Christy Nome? No, no, no. It was Pam. No, not Pam Bondi. Oh, what's her name? The girl who does the press secretary, whatever her name is.
Which
Fuck.
one?
The
New
current
one?
blonde one.
Oh, fuck, no idea.
I forget her name. Anyway, she's recently been seen suddenly out of nowhere wearing a fancy golden cross, which she was not wearing before. So it's all performative, right? To try to convince the Christians to go along with this. And
I mean, it's already weird enough that remember during Trump's inauguration, or I guess every inauguration of presidents, that they have to put a hand on the Bible when they're
yeah,
swearing.
yeah,
That is already weird. I see why people would do this, but why the hell is this the first thing to go to?
yeah.
Obviously, the only thing they should be swearing on is the Constitution,
You're right.
which is perfectly fine to swear on, right? Even though I don't like the American Constitution enough, I think it's like an old Windows installation, where the registry is kind of fucked.
Yeah.
But in most things, it's still okay.
Chat got
The
me.
major
It's
criticism,
Caroline Levitt
yeah,
is her name.
the major criticism that I currently have of the U.S. Constitution is that the basic rights are not immutable.
Yeah.
In the German one, for example, have you ever read the German Constitution?
I have not.
No, because that's actually done properly. Basically, the first law says, "Hey, human dignity is inviolable. Therefore, we have these rights," and then it lists 20 articles or so that are just the basic rights. Freedom of press, religion, movement. One of picking the job that you want. All of that stuff. And then there's an article later that says, hey, these 20 articles, these 21st articles, those can never be touched under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Even if we get a new constitution, that new constitution would only be legal if it contains these 20 articles, or at least the rights in those 20 articles. But in the US, no such thing exists.
Yeah.
I mean, they're listed in the first.
Even the Declaration of Independence is a declaration. It's not. That's why one of the reasons why they're having so much trouble in the court.
No, I mean, I don't really have an issue with the Constitution existing like this, but the problem is that the amendments that contain the basic rights are not protected more than any other amendment is.
Right.
Right. I mean, you had prohibition before, which was cancelled out by a new amendment.
Yep.
The fact that this can theoretically be done to the other ones is deeply troubling.
Yeah.
You want to have those things be as immutable as possible.
There's a one thing that I should point out too is that a lot of churches in America in that Bible Belty area, because I'm not going to say every church because it certainly doesn't apply to all of them. There are a lot of religious people in America who are very, very not happy with what's going on and they're not okay with it. But there are full churches that have pastors and preachers that are telling people how they should
Which
vote.
way to vote.
Yeah.
Which is obviously illegal for non-profit organizations.
Yep, absolutely illegal.
But they do it anyway because everybody just runs along with it. Yeah, it's insane. And obviously that deserves some sort of crackdown.
Yes, absolutely. Are you ready for 9?
I'm ready for 9, yeah.
Okay.
Corporate power is protected. The industrial and business aristocracy of a fascist nation often are the ones who put the government leaders into power, creating a mutually beneficial business-government relationship and power elite. That one, Albert Speer, who was armaments minister in Nazi Germany and architect, one of Hitler's best buddies. He, when he was captured after the war, I'm not sure if he surrendered or whether he was captured, he held a lecture to American soldiers, generals and shit, saying that the first thing that he did when he became Minister of Armaments was to get rid of bureaucrats and replace them with industrialists.
Yeah.
And
Sound familiar?
yeah, that's one thing. And he also got applause for this one.
Ugh.
It's very clear in the US that you have this kind of billionaire elite,
Yep.
which just has enormous political power.
Yep.
And we're gonna get to a different point. I think it's point 13 later that goes into detail more. But there's nothing left to be said about this. It's pretty straightforward.
Everybody's looking directly at Elon Musk and all of the other oligarchs standing behind Trump at his inauguration. Like, it's all just deep money. It's all just deep pockets.
Who was there? It was Musk, it was Zuckerberg, it was Bezos.
Yep. Google guy.
What am I missing here? The Google guy. Was it Page?
Maybe. I don't remember which one.
I don't remember either.
Sorry,
yeah.
ABC man. I feel like there was one other one there too. Whatever. But you've also got a lot of big money getting really pissed off about all this tariff shit too, so we'll see.
I mean, the question is whether that's going to be enough.
Oh, Apple. Apple guy was there.
Oh, yeah, Tim Cook, yeah.
Yep.
Let's go for the next one. Labor power is suppressed. Because the organizing power of labor is the only real threat to fascist government, labor unions are either eliminated entirely or are severely suppressed. This is the thing that got me pissed off about Elon Musk. The first thing that I noticed. When he built this gigafactory outside Berlin, he did three things that are absolutely unacceptable. At least here in Europe. Number one is that he tried to mess with German engineers. When you work at a German automotive company, right, be it Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, take your pick, they have certain perks for their workers, which is, first of all, the bigger factories have their own, not only cafeterias and stuff, but also like kindergartens where you could bring your kid before work. Costs you nothing. They take care of them. You take them back on the way home. You get a nice fancy office. You get a nice, company car that you can drive around. When Tesla started hiring engineers for the new plant in Berlin, they literally had the job interviews in like empty parking lots and shit where the factory was about to be built. What a proper company would do, I mean, it's fine, if you don't have any locations yet, obviously you gotta hold the job interviews somewhere. But usually you would just rent a hotel, rent a venue, right? Rent it for a week or two until all the interviews are done. Take your pick.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know they have the funding. That's number one.
We even do that in Canada. Like, that's not even uncommon.
Yeah. Number two, they try to mess with the unions, which is bad. This is no. In Germany, a company is over a certain size. The council, the highest amount of members that do the decisions, need to be composed of a certain percent. I think it's 50% actually. That's of cool. Just elected members of the workforce, right? They can't influence unions,
right?
And I would also like to add to that point that they also try to meddle with like safety regulation.
Oh God, no! Of course.
The Tesla factory is kind of infamous for having the most amount of amputations per work hour in any German car manufacturing plant. That's already pretty disturbing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then he also broke, partially at least on purpose, the what's it called? Like the amount of water that he was allowed to use for that factory.
Oh, yeah.
The area around Berlin is actually a fucking Tinder in summer. Like it's bad. If you've never been there, in theory, it's a swamp. That's actually where the word Berlin comes from. It's Old Slavic for swamp. But in summer, when it gets really dry, the south and the east side of the city, those are surrounded by these kind of tree plantations. I wouldn't really call them forests.
Right.
Because, the soil quality is so bad that you can't really have an old forest because everything just dies after a certain time.
Right.
They have these very thin trees that are just basically used for firewood and some very shitty IKEA furniture. And because those are so thin and those are all pines, and spruces and shit, once it gets very dry, you have forest fires there.
They'll just go
quite
up,
a lot. And I remember him flying into Berlin to hold this press conference. And a journalist asked, "Hey, you're using way more water than you should. What are you saying to the locals?" He just laughed it off, saying, "There's enough water here." And then a couple of weeks later, we had a drought and we had the worst forest fires in that region since like the 80s. So, and by the way, this area is also like full of old World War II ammunition. Because let's assume you're a bomber pilot coming in from the UK. You try to drop your load over Berlin. You can't see the city because everything's darkened.
Yeah.
But the things are so heavy that you can't fly back to Britain all the way if you
So you
carry
just
around
dump
the
it.
bombs back home.
Yeah.
You might not even be allowed to land with the things on board. Who knows? So you
Yeah.
just dump them anywhere. And that's just if you come from, let's say, London and you fly over Berlin, the first thing behind Berlin is where that factory is. So that entire
Wow.
region was the south. Think of Berlin kind of like a clock,
Yeah,
right?
it's waiting.
From let's say 2 to like 7, that area, that ring around Berlin, it's maybe from about 20 to about 40 kilometers around the city center. It's a big ass forest, but it's just full of ammunition.
Yeah.
Like full of it. They had to clear that, what was it, half a square kilometer or whatever for the Tesla factory. They found hundreds of unexploded ordnance. It's also the area, by the way, where the Soviet army came from in the last days of the war. And Nuremberg has a similar problem. It also has a forest ring on one side of the city, and it's kind of similar, especially on the north. And my old university was that. That was
crazy.
bad. Don't leave the fucking path.
So Elon Musk fucking sucks. But he's also not the only one that's been doing union busting. Union busting has been happening in America like crazy in the last couple of years.
When you look
Starbucks,
at
Amazon, like all over the place.
Yeah, that it just doesn't. All the what's it called? All the airlines, similar situation. Yeah, no, bad. You want unions to be powerful.
Yep.
Because you want the workers to be happy. That's the
right.
The way for a prosperous society.
Yeah, you don't want massive economic disparagement. You want like it's more profitable for everyone be here rather than a couple of people here and everybody else way down here.
Yes,
for a society isn't made up of 5 people.
You want a prosperous middle class and you want a very thin, if possible, non-existent lower class.
Or if you do have a lower class, that lower class is comfortable.
Yes, exactly. Like Finland, for example, they just eliminated poverty. No, not really poverty, but homelessness at least, right?
Yeah.
Because the solution turned out, if you're just homeless, just fund them a small apartment.
Yep.
They will find their way back into society.
There's a couple of cities in Canada that have eliminated homelessness as well.
Yeah, that's the way to go for.
Yeah.
Very, very clear that's the way to go. Let's go for the next one. Disdain for elections. Oh, that is so brilliant because of what just happened. Fascist nations tend to promote and tolerate open hostility to higher education and academia. It is not uncommon for professors and other academics to be censored or even arrested. Free expression in the arts is openly attacked. Governments often refuse to fund the arts. You guys remember that infamous statement by, I think it was the Texas Board of Education about maybe 15 years ago, where they said that they were, quote, opposed to higher level thinking skills that are opposed to the students' fixed beliefs. Yeah. I mean, this is obviously very heavily influenced in the US by religion, again. But, the entire Harvard thing.
There's the Harvard thing. There's like Harvard is the big story right now because Harvard is telling them no. But there are countless other universities and lawyers and industry that have bent the knee, right? That are like, it's
funding of education, full stop. Right. If you look at the US, look at how little the teachers earn, right? Many of them have to have a second job to survive. You want to have everybody as educated as possible.
Right.
Because, the amount of money you get back from that investment is just insane. It's like 4 to 1 or 5 to 1.
Absolutely. The return on investment for things like school lunches for all kids, the return on investment for educational programs, and that includes like arts or music or whatever, sports, etc., etc. The return on investment is massive. And on top of that, you also have like this. I have a thing that I like to say, and I bring it up every time I get a chance, and it's like the Artists are the mechanics of culture. If you do not have artists, your culture will suffer. Your society will suffer because you will lose your identity, you will lose any kind of development, you will lose any kind of like advancement and progress in like sculpting or dance and when you lose that and you lose the ability to do those things, your morality, or sorry, not morality, your brain, not motivation. What's the word I'm looking for here? Not morals. Your desire to do the thing. Your motivation. What's the word? Whatever. Anyway, you're wanting to do those things just declines and declines and declines and declines, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't do these things, and then it gets taken over by somebody telling you, like, oh, you just feel bad, suck it up, or oh, if you feel bad, you should do this, and that thing is somebody selling you something.
Yes. Why don't you just stop dancing and march with us instead?
Right.
Yeah.
Morale. Thank you. Yes, April got it.
Yeah.
Morale.
No,
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. And now, I mean, in the US, it has always been bad regarding higher education and cost for it. Because again, what you want to do is have higher education available for anybody.
Yep.
Just have it open for people who are actually good at what they're doing, right? And the first thing that happens at German universities after the first year is to just kick all the people out that didn't deliver the performance that is required.
Right.
I remember when I started studying chemistry, we were a class 1 year of about 150 people in my subject, which is chemistry. And after the first year, maybe half of them were gone.
Yep.
And I remember of the 150 that started, about 35 got a master's degree.
Yeah.
After the 5 years. Right? So you have like 75% at least that just disappear because they can't deliver. You want to have education available for anybody, but you gotta make sure that the quality isn't lost by making sure that only the best people actually get the degrees.
It's it almost seems like there should be universities ought to be doing two different things. They ought to be having open education, and then they ought to be having advancement. So like you should have, ideally, if there's like 135 people, you want 100 people completing the class, but you don't want 100 people getting a master's, right? You want them to have the education, but they don't necessarily. There should be a difference between the getting and accessibility of that education and the actual certificate.
Yes, I agree with that. And most of the people that, quote unquote, dropped out and it just ending up in a different field of study.
Yeah.
Right? Once you start doing this,
you
end up finding your niche. But in the US, good luck if you don't have $50,000 per semester to get on one of the better universities. Here at McDonald's or donate your blood or whatever, take your pick. It's insane.
We were also dancing around the fact that Trump has outright said and intends to eliminate the Department of Education in totality.
I mean, that is one thing I'm a bit unsure about, because
I don't know if he can, but
a central education standard might not be needed.
Sure.
Because, for example, in Germany, again, based on the constitution, education is actually a state-run thing. Germany has 16 states, kind of like the US has 50. And in order to, have a potentially going bad central government influencing education too much, it was decided that this should be a state affair. Which is fine, as long as the states somewhat coordinate that the standards are somewhat similar. I'm from the state of Bavaria, and our Abitur, which is the final test before you finish off high school, that's the one that qualifies you for university.
Right.
That's supposed to be one of the harder ones. I think that those things should be standardized.
Sure.
Just so that it's comparable.
I don't think that America is in the position to start doing that yet, though. So there are too many states. Like, so if you were to separate, because the idea, right, the idea that they're presenting is that the federal government is going to stop doing education, so we don't need the Department of Education, which is to then shift the burden of that onto the states, which to a degree already control part of their education system, right? But the thing that the federal government does is it standardizes it. if you were to remove that entirely and then not give the states the resources that they're going to need to take up the burden that the federal government is already doing, particularly in poorer states, it's going to drop dramatically. If there was a plan to shift from point A to point B, I think that would be fine. You could definitely do that. That's an option to look at, but you need a very different America than what we're seeing now. And what we're seeing now is just, that's the equivalent of him just saying, you're just not going to get education anymore.
Yes, I mean, there's also the obvious attempt of them to funnel education money into private schools.
Yes.
Specifically into religious private schools, which is obviously not the purpose of
something that is literally just made a decision on in the court, which was voted 50-50, which in a 50-50, one of the judges, Supreme Court judges, had recused themselves from the case. And so it ended up being a tie of whether or not Catholic schools were allowed to get public funding. And so it defaulted to a no because it ended up being...
That's a good thing, but it's a shame that it was so close.
It defaults to the decision that was made by the lower court. So the lower court said no, and then the Supreme Court justices 50-50 with one person being out, the breaking tie being out because she recused herself. Had she been there, she likely would have voted to allow it, but so it was disallowed for now.
Insane. Let's go for the next one, I think.
Yeah, obsession.
Yeah, by the way, one more, before we continue, there's one more personal anecdote. A friend of mine was in Harvard 3 years ago, 2022. When you do a PhD in my university, where I got my PhD, you're supposed to have an external research stay for between 3 and 6 months. And he decided to go to Harvard because that's where my professor's professor, back when he was a grad student, was set up. So he went there for 2 years, and now he was thinking about going back because he really liked the education system there. He liked the work group. They had the nice equipment, not worse than our equipment, but just a nice laboratory environment.
Yeah.
And he's now seriously thinking about not doing this for obvious reasons. He just applied for all the different pharma companies here, and apparently also for the military who need the chemists. So imagine just the amount of brain drain that the US is gonna get. Before World War II, because the disdain of intellectuals also happened in Nazi Germany. I mean, Hitler famously called relativity and quantum physics "quote unquote" Jewish science, and all the theoretical physicists just ran to the US.
Yep.
With the exception of Werner Heisenberg.
Yep.
But everybody else was gone. And you could make the argument that maybe under very specific circumstances might have shifted the outcome of the war a bit, because of the entire Manhattan Project thing. I don't think it would have been that extreme if it had been any different, just because the US just had way more resources in that regard. Full stop. Good luck getting sufficient amounts of uranium, particle accelerators. You need the cyclotrons and everything before you came up with the gas centrifuges that didn't exist back then. You need to build the reactors. It was a shit ton of work. I don't think Germany could have done this, even if they had the theoretical knowledge to do it. That shit is going to happen again.
Yeah. Just
the other way around.
Well, 3 world leaders have offered open doors. France, China, and Canada have all been like, "Oh, you're getting kicked out of America? Oh, well, hey, I mean,
The president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said something very similar yesterday during a speech.
Yeah.
So I would say the entire EU as a whole should be put on that list as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
crime and punishment. Under fascist regimes, the police are given almost limitless power to enforce laws. The people are often willing to overlook police abuses and even forego civil liberties in the name of patriotism. There's often a national police force with virtually unlimited power in fascist nations. I mean, the ICE thing is pretty obvious.
Ice, baby.
That is seriously scary. Really, really badly scary. There are countless stories now of tourists wanting to go to the US only to be found to be suspicious about anything.
Yep.
There was this French professor who got arrested at the airport because
Canadian scientists.
Scientists. 2 German backpacking tourists in Hawaii who got hit with the same.
Yep.
You know why they were found to be suspicious? No? Because they didn't reserve hotel stays for the entire stay. They're backpacking. Of course they don't do this. They were just kicked out. I mean, I'm all in favor of arresting people for being French, but you can't do it because they're mean.
Right. Right. The other thing that I would probably point out as well is like you've got the obvious ICE, you've got the border patrol obviously being equally problematic, but I would point out that Trump pardoned the January 6th guys.
Um, that as well. The thing that I always have in mind is, this insane rate of police units in the US being militarized. I mean,
Yes.
they get old like MRAPs or shit from the military. If you don't know what an MRAP is, basically it's a wheeled vehicle that can drive over a mine without being blown up.
Yep.
Right? They're mine resistant something. Um, fucking basically it's basically almost as if it's a tank without the gun on the top.
Right.
In terms of performance. Why? This is. I mean, they're not going to a war zone. And it also leads to this, us versus them mentality in the police that everybody's your enemy.
All the
Then
gang
of course,
violence that they're obsessed with right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. What else do we have? Yada yada. Oh yeah, protect the blue, and then you pardon all the people.
Oh yeah, the Blue Lives Matter thing.
I mean, in my opinion, no lives matter. You all cunts, fuck off. But no, I mean, Trump pardoned the January 6 rioters.
Yeah.
The people who literally tried to overturn democracy.
Yeah.
Who literally, carried I'm not even sure if that was just a symbol, right? That gallows, that noose that they carried around.
Yeah.
I mean, how many cops did they end up killing? Was it one or two?
I think only one cop died. I think.
And one cop died. Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of irony on that day, like the one protester who got trampled down while carrying around the Gadsden flag.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember that one? For those who don't know, the Gadsden flag, that's the yellow one with the snake that says "Don't tread on me."
Yeah. They got tread on.
There's like very tread
I
on.
had the guy who designed that "Don't Tread on Me" snake on the channel actually recently. Go check it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's talking about marketing. Matt and Sam. So they're a good couple. They're fun to talk to. Sorry, they're not like a couple. Sorry, I didn't mean to be.
And what I recently read is that apparently, remember who Ashley Babbitt was? That was a protester who got shot.
Yeah.
Apparently, the US just settled with their family to pay them $5 million of compensation.
Yes. Yep.
Which, come on, for a fucking riot, was just like 20 meters away from all the parliamentarians.
Yeah.
Got multiple warnings of backing down. Not as just a single shot as a defense measurement. I think might have been justifiable. Not your standard American police 20 warning shots in the back.
Yeah.
Insane. It's insane.
Yeah. There's
crime and punishment. The US had public executions until historically fairly recently. When was the last one? Like 1905 or something?
Something like that.
Which it sounds a long time ago, but on a society scale, that's not that far ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the police abuse is. Oh yeah, it's fine if the police just overreact, because there's danger. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Now, if you don't want to go in a dangerous situation, don't become a police officer. In Germany, if a police officer shoots somebody, they have to justify every single shot. Yes. Every single one. First one, probably fine. Second one, still probably fine. Third one, maybe. But in the US, 5, 6, 7, 8, until the magazine is empty and then some. No.
Yeah. They had to reload, kept shooting the body. Yeah. That's taxpayer money, man. That's taxpayer money. It should have to be justified.
Bullets are expensive.
13.
Okay, this is the interesting one. Rampant cronyism and corruption. Fascist regimes almost always are governed by a group of friends and associates who appoint each other to government positions and use governmental power and authority to protect their friends from accountability. It's not uncommon that in fascist regimes for national resources and even treasures to be appropriated or even outright stolen by government leaders. About the friends thing, how many regulations were undone by Trump recently so that it's easier for Tesla to do their shit?
Yeah.
The entire surveillance.
Doge as well, going and cutting every agency that was investigating him.
the financial, what was it called? Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Yep.
The anti-scam police, basically, those were gutted.
Yep.
Regarding stealing treasures, coming back to Göring, he infamously had a very large art collection. Literally an entire train full of art, paintings, sculptures, like like gold chains and shit, just full of it. That was stolen from museums. Much of it was returned. A bunch of it was never found.
Yeah.
And Trump using like charities to funnel money into his own pockets for shitty paintings of himself.
Yep.
Yeah. It's so fucking obvious.
There's also like how many people are his direct family in his first administration and his second administration, where he's got like, oh, this is my son's wife, and this is like my daughter's husband, Jared Kushner.
I remember when Trump brought along his daughter-in-law, no, his daughter, sorry, Ivanka, to I think it was a G7 summit meeting.
Yep.
And she tried to speak with Angela Merkel and Theresa May, and they just basically ignored her.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well,
just go away.
What did you expect, to be honest? No, nobody's interested in you at all. There's
the second you get elected into office, then maybe we can talk about this.
Right.
But, right now, you're just...
There's also Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is currently being protected by the Trump administration, and so is Elon. Like, one of the reasons why Elon got so quiet for the last little while is because he doesn't want to get deposed. He's supposed to sit...
the one with
Hegseth was the Signal Chat guy, yeah. The Signal Chat
insane.
Guy. Yep.
Insane. So in a proper society, both of them would be kicked out of government immediately, ostracized from ever holding public office again.
Absolutely,
and charged.
Yep.
And probably found guilty, let's be honest.
Yep. 100%. And they're just being protected by the Trump administration. And it's like, again, it's not just Trump doing this. This is an entire group of people, of his friends, his family.
And the media as well, right? Again.
The media as well, yep.
Okay, number 14. Let's get to the last one.
Let's go.
Fraudulent elections. Sometimes elections in fascist nations are a complete sham. Other times elections are manipulated by smear campaigns against or even assassination of opposing candidates. Use of legislation to control voting numbers or political district boundaries, and manipulation of the media. Fascist nations also typically use their judiciaries to manipulate or control elections. Just full-on hit. The US has not completed a sham election yet. I don't see that. But you have the district boundaries thing, the very infamous gerrymandering that's going on in the US. You have these almost manipulated debates before every major election.
Yes.
And the judiciary, Trump very clearly tried, after 2020 when he lost.
Yep.
He just used every single thing at his disposal to claim that the election was fucked up, even though he lost almost all cases with the exceptions of some technicalities. The US is definitely going in that direction.
Yeah.
But in that particular case, I don't agree that they're fully there yet.
Yeah, I think that
many of the other 13 points, most of them are already perfect fits. This one, not quite. At least not on a federal level.
It's one of those where it's like it's getting there, and there's definitely manipulation going on, but it hasn't reached like the top end of it yet. It's vibing right now. It's making it's the little engine that could. It's chugging along. It's getting there, but it's not quite there yet. So we'll see what it looks like in like another couple of years, but the attempt is there. Like, obviously there. They're clearly trying to go this direction. They're trying to control these things in that sort of way. Like the lock her up chants and bullshitting about like things about Biden and all kinds of nonsense that's like fake news, yada 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 yada, trying to like manipulate narrative and control what the narrative is. That's one of the reasons why Trump is so outrageous, right? When he says things. He's so outrageous because he wants people to talk about him. He wants to maintain control over who's talking about what and what they're talking about. For example, Elon Musk using Twitter to manipulate who's seeing what, and the Biden's son laptop shit, Hillary Clinton's emails nonsense, right?
Yeah, it's insane. Anyway, we're through the 14 points. There's one, maybe two that I would like to add.
All right, let me do a thing, and we will switch on over.
Fair enough.
Yeah, all right, check it out. Ain't we nice? I got a knife right at my head here, though. I don't.
Yeah. So point number 15, which I would like to add, a
Yes.
cult of personality about the single figurehead,
Yeah.
call him
Yeah.
president or
Hitler,
Führer or Dutch or
Mussolini,
whatever.
Trump,
Yes, I mean
Stalin.
Hitler famously insisted on everybody having a copy of his book,
Yeah.
everybody having a picture of him on one of the walls in their house, and having these shit tons of things named after him. And little sculptures being made and big sculptures being made, all of that crap.
Yeah.
Trump just gets shitty AI art instead.
Well, like the picture posting, like his Truth Social stuff, where he's like posting shitty AI of him being the Pope, or shitty
Being the
AI
Pope, or being
of
a soldier or something, or carrying a flag across.
I'm waiting for like I'm waiting for the furry art to come out, where it's like it's like Trump's head on like an eagle body, or like an anthropomorphized eagle.
That's point number 15, which I think fits. Point
Kim
number
Jong-un,
16.
Yeah.
Yeah, point number 16, which I would like to mention, is shameless hypocrisy.
Oh.
Right? I mean, you just mentioned the locker up thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously, the thing that Trump has done and that his cronies are doing, Pete Hegseth, for example, with the entire security breaches, that's just way worse, for example, than that Biden laptop thing or that Hillary server thing. Just talking about war plans on no fucking signal.
Yeah, with somebody who was in Russia.
Yes.
So bizarre. There's like one other degree. I might adjust that to be hypocrisy, and might I mean, the hypocrisy's there, but maybe I would add in inconsistency. Like there is no consistent, like, the rhetoric changes on a dime. Right? Trump will say one thing one day and then say something completely the opposite another day. Right? And like just the lying. So if you're gonna like make one that's maybe like directed at rhetoric, it would be like a mix of hypocrisy, inconsistencies in, and then like I guess just straight up lying about I guess that falls maybe under media manipulation, perhaps. I don't know.
I guess partially, yeah. Now the big question is, how the fuck is this gonna continue?
Yeah, and can you stop it? Yeah.
I mean, whenever I look up like how the situation was like when the Weimar Republic fell in 1932-33, these days it's pretty much agreed upon that downfall was never inevitable. One of the major first pieces of legislation that the Nazis came along with was the Enabling Act. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
Okay, so the Enabling Act was published in early 1933. And let me just read the text. Hang on.
Yeah. April said, I love how Don Jr. is doing exactly what Hunter Biden did and no one is saying anything. I would probably point further and say he's doing far more than even what Hunter Biden was accused of, let alone what he actually did and didn't do.
Okay, so the Enabling Act, signed on the 23rd of March 1933. The official act for it was the law to remedy the distress of the people and the empire.
Okay, that's
I'm not going to go
vague.
into the preamble because it's unnecessary. Article 1. The first two articles are the evil ones. The rest is just, technicalities, but the first two are bad. In addition, so Article 1, in addition to the procedure prescribed by the Constitution, laws of the Reich may also be enacted by the government of the Reich. This includes the laws referred to by Articles 85, paragraph 2 and Article 7 of the Constitution. So basically, this was a way to circumvent the legislative branch of the government and have it unified with the executive. Right? You give the executive the power to make laws, which is something that, by definition, they're not supposed to do.
Right.
Right? That's the first grab in the first part of getting rid of a parliamentary democracy.
Yeah.
Article 2 is even worse. Article 2. Laws enacted by the government of the Reich may deviate from the Constitution as long as they do not affect the institutions of the Reichstag and the Reichsrat. Those are the two parliamentary chambers.
That's so bad. That's basically for anybody watching this that doesn't necessarily needs like a comparison. That's like Trump saying that the executive branch is allowed to make laws, and so the president's allowed to make laws and write laws with executive orders, let's say.
But it's even worse, right? Because it says that, hey, all those laws that are in the Constitution that guarantee your basic rights,
and
those don't apply anymore.
Yeah, and the president is allowed to write laws that ignore the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Yeah.
Yes, that's the insane
part. Or circumvent. Yeah, like supersede, I should say.
That is the thing that I think Trump is gonna attempt in a very short time frame. If you look at how the Weimar Republic fell, it took about 18 months.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
It's always faster than people think it is.
Yes, because they're trying to overrun you with moving as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And with Trump, I see something similar happening in the future. I mean, he's already trying this without actually publishing a law.
Yeah.
It's also a dangerous situation because in Germany, even Weimar Germany back then, the head of state is not the same person as the head of government.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You had the president and you had the chancellor, just the same way it's still working.
Right.
Kind of like how in the UK, you have the prime minister, Canada as well, right?
Yep.
But UK is a better example where you have the prime minister, who's the head of the executive and the government.
Yep.
And then you have, the queen or the king, who's the person who's actually signing all the laws into effect.
Yes.
Those are two different people.
Yep.
Not in the US.
No.
Actually, during the Nuremberg trials, again, Göring was asked how they came up with the role of Führer. And he snarkingly made the remark that, well, we just copy the dual role of the president of the US. Which also caused laughter in the courtroom.
That is funny. That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
The problem with charisma is you can be the worst person on the planet and still be fucking likable.
So this is a major, major, major issue in the US. And I think Trump is going to try to expand his powers even more by not publishing an enabling act of the same sort. I mean, it's not going to look the same, right? The same way that religious fundamentalist regimes look different in every different country, or democracies look different. The democracy in the US is not the same as in Europe.
Yeah.
Right? Or in Japan or in Australia. Take your pick. They're all, there's commonalities, but there's also differences. And we're seeing the same, obviously, with the fascists.
There's two things slowing down the president of the United States right now. One is Canada and the international stage. And like this trade war that he's started. It's slowing him down because people haven't responded the way he thought he would, especially France and Canada. And then the other one is the court system, because the court system is slow, but I think he's also taking advantage of the slow speed of the court to just pump more shit into it. So
he's trying to overload them.
Yeah.
And obviously he also has the power to appoint judges, which is even more insane.
Yeah, he's got something floating around for the justices to make a decision on, which would basically, if they agree to it, is just neutering their own power. So,
there's hope that they're intelligent enough not to do this, but then again,
I've
been disappointed in the past, yet I'm still disappointed.
Well, and a lot of them were appointed by Republicans. This isn't something that's just happening right now. This is something that has been being set up that the Dems failed to deal with for the last at least probably 2-3 administrations, Republican and Democrat administrations, since Obama failed to appoint one because of thanks Mitch McConnell. Like, the Democrats haven't been successful at appointing a Supreme Court justice in a while. And they've all just been they've been loaded to Republican sympathizers, ostensibly. And realistically, in Canada, if there's a Supreme Court justice, you don't know what their political affiliation is because they're not supposed to even have one. And even if they do have one personally, you're not supposed to know about it.
Same in Germany. That's the way it's supposed to be. And in the US Constitution, it says the same thing, that the people are not supposed to have any party affiliations. I mean, obviously, they're going to have them anyway. But, they're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be not corrupt. That's an all different story.
Not the most obviously corrupt Winnebago driving motherfuckers you've ever met.
Exactly.
For
those who don't know, there was a scandal about, was it Clarence Thomas? I think
it was Clarence Thomas, yeah.
Who was basically gifted one of these very big recreational vehicles.
Yep.
How expensive was it? Like $750,000?
It's insane. It's insane.
Not only is there supposed to be not any corruption, there's not even supposed to be the appearance of corruption. That here we are.
Right. The other one is so we kind of talked about the direction they're going. I don't see them slowing down at all. There's not really a reason for them to slow down. As
No,
far
neither
as,
am I seeing that. No, it's gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse for
There's
sure.
there's of course a chance that Trump just drops dead. I mean, he's just one Big Mac away from a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what would happen if JD Vance takes over.
Yeah,
Because,
he's
even
kind
though
of a
Trump
weenie.
even though Trump is fucking evil, at least he's incompetent.
So the next question that we need to probably touch on today before we wrap up is how do you stop it? If this is the direction that America is going in, and this is something again that the American people voted for, what happens? How do the American people and how does America like put the brakes on this and try to turn this bus around?
I don't know. I mean, the only legal option is just to vote them all out of office. That's the only way to go. Vote them out of office, sue them wherever possible for every violation that they're doing.
Mm.
Is there a different way? I don't know. Which is why I can't really give an advice other than that. Vote them out as possible and sue them into oblivion whenever that's doable.
I can think of 3 options, but yeah, that's 2 of them.
Get the fuck out. I'm at the point where I say if you have the opportunity, leave the US. Go now. Go as quickly as possible. Go to a civilized place or to France. And take your family with you.
He's even
Don't
suggesting France. That's how bad America is right now.
Yeah, if you're in the US and you can't leave, I don't know what to tell you. I can't give you advice.
Well,
right? What am I supposed to say?
Somebody was asking if you would recommend people try to go to Germany.
Yes and no. I mean, Germany is a nice place. It has some problems.
Yeah.
But I think you would be better off, first of all, in a nation where English is the standard language.
Yeah.
Because in Germany, most people speak broken English, but it's not enough to get around, especially when you have to deal with, immigration and everything.
I would recommend if you're trying to get out and you don't know how, or you're worried that you don't have enough money, or you're worried about travel, or you're worried about this, apply to school. Apply to school in another country. It doesn't matter how old you are. Apply to school and see if you can get in. That would be
apply to university. That's
ways
actually
to
good advice. Yes.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to get a second citizenship,
do it.
Which you might qualify for. Like if your parent is French or German or Swedish or whatever, talk to their embassy and ask.
Yep.
Because if you have a parent that's German, you have a high chance that you qualify for German citizenship.
Yeah, I think applying to school is probably one of the fastest and easiest ways to currently get out of America, and the cheapest. You're gonna incur debt. You're gonna incur debt, and then once you're there, you can figure out from there. But go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing. In Germany, there's no such thing as birthright citizenship, right? You are a German citizen if you can show that your parents were, or if you get the citizenship manually, right? So, which means that if you go over there and your kid is born there, you don't qualify, and neither does the kid.
So
just one thing to be aware of.
The only other thing
that I... Wait, I'm not done. So if you can't qualify for school for whatever reason, right? If you're disabled, for example, and couldn't really contribute to society, right? Because you just need benefits and there's no other way around it. Try to get out, but make your life there as easy as possible by going to one of the countries that is just English speaking, full stop. Germany is a nightmare when it comes to bureaucracy. Much of it is still done on paper. Most of it, all of it is only available in German. When I moved to Denmark, half of the stuff I had to fill out was also available in English. The fucking tax system is available in English certain parts.
Yeah.
Germany, in that regard, is a backwards place. I mean, they recently upgraded their DMVs to fax machines. Just pointing that one out.
Yeah. Canada is also limiting the number of international students we're taking over the next little while. So if you're going to get in, try to get in now. But good luck. There's
as I said, just get out.
Yeah.
I don't see this getting better.
No, it's I don't. How bad do you think it could get? Because I don't think a lot of Americans understand how bad it can and will get. I'm seeing famine in the near future.
I don't know. I mean, you're always trying to be positive about this kind of shit.
Yeah.
But so were people in 1932.
Yeah.
My grandparents, they were all too young to really see the beginning of the downfall of the Weimar Republic. My oldest grandfather was born in 1928. My youngest one in 1935. He's still alive, by the way. One from 35. Just turned 90 a couple of weeks ago. And but I asked them about what their parents were thinking, and all of them were like, "Oh yeah, this is not gonna be so bad." Apart from one great grandfather who was apparently very enthusiastic about the entire thing, which didn't last very long. And after the war, he ended up, how should I say this, a YouTube friendly way, not being able to live with himself anymore.
That is a good way to put it.
Yeah. So now don't underestimate this. I think this is, I'm not sure if we're going to see famine. We're going to see a shit ton of unnecessary deaths, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they canceled all sorts of, Medicare is being threatened.
Yep.
Hospitals are being defunded. All of this is terrible. This is not to be underestimated.
If I was being dismal about it, and this is, I'm not trying to be extreme. I'm trying to say, like, this is, if I'm going to be dismal, like, how bad this is likely to get in, like, a very unfiltered way, in America, you are going to run out of grave space. You're going to start seeing mass graves, specifically because you're going to have so many people all at once dying from disease and preventable things that if they had medical care, they would be able to get. You're going to have fighting in the streets, and I think you're going to have famine. And the reason I think you're going to have famine is because of the expensive potash, because of the Trump tariffs, and John Deere is leaving America. They're like, oh, nope, fine, fuck you. Farmers are screwed. Your food production is screwed. And your ability to get food from outside the country is screwed. You guys have locked yourselves in a box and then set the box on fire.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. It's already bad that they have a health minister who is an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Even though I must say, RFK's brainworm is only the third worst thing that ever happened to the head of a Kennedy.
Yeah.
I mean, with one you're familiar, the other one was the lobotomy of one of JFK's sisters.
Yeah.
Rosemary. That was bad. I would even make the argument that the lobotomy was worse than the assassination, because then at least that one was over.
Yeah. I think...
just get out. I mean, I'm serious. Get out. To all the scientists who are there, even if you're American citizens.
Yeah.
Get out. And if you're not American citizens, I mean, even if you still, keep your grants and everything, which is not guaranteed.
Yep.
I mean, that might not be the case tomorrow. That might not be the case next month. Go to a place that's more stable, or to France.
It's not like you have to stay in France forever, right? You can
nobody wants to.
Right. You could go, and then you can always go back to America when things restabilize. It's not like you have to give up on everything for the whole time. There's a big if that even if we get the next 4 years of Trump and things don't completely implode, what it's going to look like in 4 years from now. We don't know what it's going to look like in 4 years from now. That's how unstable this is.
He has done damage that is going to last decades.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely screwed. There's
just
also...
because of the brain drain. Just talking from experience here, right?
Yep.
When you work in a chemical lab, your professor, the higher-ups, are dependent on a continuous line of students, right? The new ones being trained, all ones teaching the new ones and then leaving. If there's just 1 or 2 years of a hole in there, the work group of that professor is going to have a serious issue, because people will not be able to understand how the devices work that they're using.
Yep.
Some of the soft
industry is going to fall off a cliff.
Can't write down.
Yep.
It's just going to disappear. From my old work group, I still every now and then get an email asking me about how, for example, one of the inert gas glove boxes would work, because I was the person responsible for the thing.
Yep.
Right, and they haven't found somebody. I trained one person to replace me, but she's now on maternity leave.
Yeah, oh no.
So what the fuck are they gonna do to keep these?
Like that
things
happens running? Like regularly, let alone happening on like a widespread scale. It's gonna be crazy. We're talking like nuclear plants, power plants. We're talking like major industry, automotive. On the other hand, I do think there's one other thing that I think Americans can do, like besides leaving, like I think Gio's right. Get out if you can.
As I said, I think just suing them into oblivion and
suing them into oblivion, resisting, protest resisting, I think is a big deal. A lot of these people, specifically at the Senate and the House and the judicial level, do not do well under pressure. So if you show up and you protest Clarence Thomas, for example, at his place of employment or at his home or wherever you're allowed to protest, while you're still allowed to protest before they move the military in, now is the time to be doing that as much as possible. I'm still baffled by, with all of the children that America has sacrificed to the gun gods, that not a single ICE agent has been reported getting shot at, let alone actually being hit, and let alone actually not surviving. That baffles me. Like, what was the point? I don't know, man.
There's one thing I would like to add here. Don't go to people's houses to protest. You mentioned Clarence Thomas. I would not recommend doing this, because if something goes wrong, then they have a good, reason to.
So actually, legally they don't. Legally, they don't. In America, you're totally fine and you're allowed to do that as long as they're a public official.
Yes, I still don't think that's right. Go to their place of employment, right? Protest in front of the court, protest in front of the White House, but don't go to their private domiciles. That's just something I don't like personally. Even if it might be legal, I don't think it's morally justifiable.
I think you're fair. I understand like where you're coming from. I think when things are this extreme, I think it's practical.
There's one more thing that I would like to add regarding point 14, which I forgot to talk about earlier, which is the fraudulent elections. You know how in the US you have this insane voter disenfranchisement?
Yes.
And there's this quote-unquote argument going along how you should handle voter ID.
Yep.
Here's how to do this properly. Mm-hmm. Demand voter ID, but only under the condition that voter ID is made available easily, freely to everybody and automatically. Yes. In Germany, if you move from one place to the next, that gets registered, you get a new ID, or you get a sticker on your ID with a new address.
Yep.
All the tech stuff updates automatically, and if there's an election coming on, you automatically, maybe 4 to 6 weeks before the election, you get a letter which you have to bring to the election place, to the polling station.
Yep.
The letter also tells you what to do in case you're disabled and you need assistance, or how to do the voting by mail thing. Yep. All of that is done automatically. This is what you want. And so the IDs need to be made freely available. In Germany, that's usually either your passport or your what's called the European identity card. And it costs like $25 to get one. And it's obviously made available free for people who are like on benefits, pensioners, kids under 18, people who get unemployment benefits or disability benefits or anything, to make sure that everybody has a chance to vote.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, includes prisoners.
Canada does a very similar thing. We have Elections Canada, which is an entity on its own. It is separate from the government. It operates on its own. It's they have their process when you get when you're a citizen in Canada, when you're born in Canada, et cetera, you get your social security number. When you get your social security number, you're automatically registered to vote from wherever you're getting your social security number for. So like when you get your social security number, you show your birth certificate, wherever you're from, that's where you're registered to vote. And then whenever you update where you live, it goes to there, you get your voter ID card, et cetera, and all that shit. All that happens automatically.
The only thing I ever had to do when I was in Germany to vote was to make sure that every 5 years I get my passport renewed.
Yeah, and if you need it,
during the voting, even when you go to the polling station, right, and you take the voting sheet thing with you, they won't even ask you for your passport. Only in case you forget it or there's something wrong. Yep. Then they will ask you to it, and they can ask you to produce it, but most of the time they don't. The voter fraud basically doesn't exist because it's not worth it.
Yep.
Else? And there's one exception, which is now that I don't live in Germany anymore. Every time I want to vote for an election, I have to go to the embassy and get the paperwork done manually.
Yeah.
Which I think is also a bit overkill. That could be simplified, but there's like 200,000 Germans who don't live in Germany, so.
Yeah. There is one other thing that I should say for people who are looking to get out of America. Right now, you can cross into Canada still relatively unscathed and you're allowed to be in Canada with basically no questions asked for 6 months. It's going back to America that's the problem right now. So if you are trying to get out of America, one of the things that you can do is go to Canada and be there. And you can look for work, you can talk to lawyers, you can do whatever you need to do from there, and you can go from Canada to another place. It's a really good like jump off point. So if you're trying to get somewhere else, even if you want to like go to Mexico, you go to Canada, you walk across the border, you go to Canada, you get on a plane and fly to Mexico or wherever it is you want to go. So like there is options and there are avenues that are jump off points. You don't have to like be like, oh, I'm going to Canada or oh, I'm going to France and then having to book a flight specifically from America to there. Right.
There's one more piece of advice I'd like to give.
Yes, by all means. We'll end on that one.
Yeah. If you don't already, try to learn a second language.
Absolutely.
Take your pick: French, German, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish. Doesn't matter. Pick one so that in case you need to go and need to stay somewhere, you have at least some way of communicating.
Yep.
And it also makes the integration into the place you're going to much easier.
Yeah.
I still haven't learned a lot of Danish. I currently have a Danish course actually, but it's supposed to be easy for German speakers because the languages are so similar, which is kind of true, but the pronunciation is kind of a nightmare. But do that. Yeah, Japanese is also a good option. I guess Chinese as well. Anything that's widely spoken, widely understood, so that you have some sort of flexibility. Take your pick.
Yep.
If you want to go to the EU, learn French, Spanish, or German. One of the three.
Yeah. Pick up something. Even if it's just rough, it'll help get you through. And then once you're there, you get integrated really quick.
Before we stop this, I would like maybe 10 minutes about the personal consequences I am taking from this entire thing.
Absolutely, yeah. By all means.
I was scheduled to be in the US last year for a conference. Was it last year? No, I think it was already late 2022. 23? 23. Shit, we're already in 25. Holy shit. Time has no meaning anymore. I was supposed to go to a conference in Rhode Island. I declined because I saw this shit coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
And I did not want to risk being in the US under any circumstances. Since Trump took over and, he said all of this shit about annexing Canada and annexing Greenland and the Panama Canal and bombing Palestine to oblivion, which is also fucked up. I've been doing my best to avoid dealing with anything that's American. I don't buy any American products anymore to the degree that it's possible. The new smartphone I bought is from a Dutch manufacturer called Fairphone. The software I'm running for it has all the Google components ripped out. The same applies for my desktop computers, which are now running Linux, with the exception of the gaming PC that I'm currently on. That's going to switch soon now that I have a new GPU. The only two American companies where I would actually actively buy something now are a Framework Computer, because they make these very nice modular laptops. Also, their stuff comes from Taiwan, so I guess that's okay. And the other one's AMD, just because, I have the choice, either AMD or Intel, and AMD is just better. Other than that, I'm not gonna, give any money to American services. I never had Amazon Prime. I tried to use Google as little as possible. I ad block the absolute shit out of YouTube and out of everybody else. Yeah, that's basically it. I just try to boycott anything American. You saw how badly the sales of Tesla vehicles are dropping in Germany. It's minus 50%. In the UK, I think I saw minus 35 or something. In Denmark, here it's about 2/3 that are gone. So so for all the people in the live chat who are not American and want to do something against it, first of all, obviously talk about the fuckery that's going on, and second of all, just make the pay with their wallets. Just boycott anything humanly possible. I'm not going to ask you to make any big sacrifices about this, obviously not, right? But if you can avoid American products, just avoid American products.
Absolutely. I mean, Canada's been pretty strict about it. And I had somebody asking me if if I thought that it was slowing down or it was losing momentum. And the answer is it doesn't have to lose momentum. The products are gone. They're not on the shelves. Nobody has to actively be going out of their way nearly as much anymore because the products just don't exist on the shelves anymore. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, no, thanks for joining
It is
us.
indeed pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's been a pleasure.
I'm
Let's see
gonna
how much this gets worse, and then let's talk about it again once
yeah, we'll
deteriorated.
check in a couple of months after summer. We'll check in the
Months? Are you kidding me? It's more of a matter of weeks.
2 weeks from now. Yeah, no, actually, I don't hate that. Having you on to talk about like watching this situation evolve or devolve depending on how you feel about it would really be a good idea. So we can talk about that in the background. But it's gonna be like American fascism check in with Geo.
Maybe something like that. Yeah.
I'm going to be on Low Energy Vids on the 28th. We're going to be playing some games. I've got Becca coming on and talking about education and ADHD and autistic people education and how that's being affected by the current scenario. I'll be up on Top Hats Off playing TTRPGs on Friday, and then on next Saturday is the Debate Hub where we talk politics with Landon and Dapper and Mania. So join us for that. Gio, are you going anywhere? Where do people find you?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm soon gonna move apartments again. But you can find me on Discord, same username. You can find me on Twitter, now known as X, unfortunately. You can find me on Blue Sky. Here on YouTube as well, if need be. On Steam.
On
So
Steam!
take your pick.
We got, make sure to check him out. There's a link to his YouTube, at least, down below in the description. So I'll see if I can get his Blue Sky added in the interim. Thank you so much for joining us.
One final statement before I leave. To all the Americans, don't pretend like anything like this is normal. It's not. Resist it at any possibility, and don't stop resisting.
Yeah.
That's it.
Absolutely. Good luck, everybody out there. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.